The wealthy man stood in the middle of the marketplace, laughing and shouting at no one in particular. His once pristine agbada was torn, and his head was smeared with mud. People whispered and pointed, keeping their distance. Some said it was madness. Others said it was justice. Enze Ikena was the richest man in Amaoya. His wealth was unimaginable. Lands, livestock, and bags of gold buried in clay pots beneath his compound. He lived in a sprawling mansion with carved gates so high they touched the skies. People respected him, but not out of love. They feared his power and envied his money. When King Okorie, the ruler of Amaohia, fell ill, the village mourned. He had ruled for decades, a fair and kind leader, loved by all. Everyone knew the throne would pass to his only son, Obina, a boy of 16. Though young, Obina had shown wisdom beyond his years. His father had prepared him well, teaching him the customs and traditions of their people. But Ikena had other plans. He had always craved power, and now he saw his chance. To him, the kingship was just another thing to be bought. The boy is too young, Ikena told the elders one evening, his voice low and persuasive. Amaohia needs a man who can rule with strength and wisdom, someone who can make our land greater. He didn't need to say more. His servants stepped forward, placing bundles of money wrapped in cloth on the elders' mats. Some of the elders looked uneasy, but others took the money without hesitation. "You're right, Enzi," one of them said, his voice shaking. "The boy is too young. Perhaps the gods will agree." Ikena smiled. He thought his plan was foolproof. He bribed the council, gave lavish gifts to the town criers to spread rumors, and even hosted feasts to win over skeptical villagers. But what he didn't understand was that kingship wasn't a matter of politics or wealth. It was sacred, bound to the gods of the land. When King Okorie passed, the village entered a period of mourning. For weeks, the drums were silent and the people wore ashes on their faces. But behind the scenes, tension brewed. The elders met in secret, arguing over what should happen next. Some believed Ikena could bring wealth to the land. Others insisted the boy was the rightful heir. I was there in the square the day the council was to declare the new king. The entire village gathered under the rising sun, their faces eager but tense. Drummers lined the edges, their instruments still. Women with clay pots balanced on their heads stood beside hunters gripping spears. Everyone waited. The chief priest, an old man named Nwafor, walked into the center of the square. He carried the sacred staff, its wood carved with symbols of the gods. The crowd fell silent as he raised it high. "The gods have spoken," Nwafor said, his voice loud and clear. "The blood of the king flows through Prince Obina. He is the rightful heir. He will sit on the throne." For a moment, the crowd was silent. Then cheers erupted. People clapped, danced, and sang. The drummers began to play, their beats filling the air with joy. But not everyone was happy. Ikena pushed his way to the front, his face red with anger. "This is a lie," he shouted. "The council is corrupt. They've been bought by the king's family. I will not accept this." The crowd fell quiet, stunned by his outburst. Nwafor turned to him, calm and unshaken. "The gods do not make mistakes, Ikena," he said. "Beware. Arrogance has a price." But Ikena didn't listen. He stormed off, muttering under his breath. The ceremony continued, but an uneasy feeling hung over the celebration. That night, strange things began to happen. Ikena's servants reported hearing him talking to himself in his chambers. By morning, he was wandering the streets barefoot, his fine robes torn. His words made no sense. "They are here," he shouted to no one. "I told them I would give more. Why won't they listen?" At first, people thought he was drunk, but as the days passed, his condition worsened. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. His eyes grew wide and bloodshot. He laughed one moment and cried the next. The villagers whispered, "The gods have cursed him," they said. He challenged the sacred order. On the seventh day, Ikenna walked into the marketplace, his agbada hanging from his shoulders like rags. He clutched at the air, his lips moving in silent conversation with invisible beings. The crowd parted for him, no one daring to get too close. By evening, he disappeared into the forest. His guards searched for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Some say he became one with the spirits, wandering aimlessly in the dark. Others say he still roams, a shadow of his former self. Obinna was crowned king a month later. His reign brought peace and prosperity to Amauhia, just as the gods had willed. But the story of Nze Ikenna remained a cautionary tale, passed from one generation to the next. No matter how much wealth a man may have, they would say, "The gods cannot be bribed."